that. And I'm going to begin now, and Arthur's going to time me. So. Oy if I say, oy if I don't say. Oy if I say, oy if I don't say. Those were the words of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and also repeated in the Zohar by Shimon Bar Yochai. It's appropriate tonight. Oy if I say the word Israel, yikes. Because it is embedded with personal feelings and care and love and pain, unique to each one of us, non-transferable. But oy, if in such an evening, such a panel, we cannot say the word Israel for fear of upheaval, all kinds. Because, my friends, there are critical issues that are at hand and require our attention this year in 2015. Critical. First, I want to ask Mechila ahead of time. Because I'm sure that I won't be perfect in what I'm going to say, and God forbid I'll offend anyone here with my words. You don't have to agree, but please, I ask that you listen. I'm aware that there are always, in any room in the world, there's a wide range of opinions, even within each one of us, about Israel. So please, I ask that we draw on our spiritual tools of mindfulness and hitbonenut and civil discourse and extending chesed to people like me. My guess is that everyone here has some connection to Israel. We've either lived there or we've visited there, we've studied there, we've traveled there, and we have some deep sense that the state of Israel, the creation of the state of Israel was indeed a miracle, and is a miracle. And the existence today of Israel is of supreme and critical importance to Jews all over the world, now more than ever. Israel was founded, some of you may know this, but if you don't, it's really important, was founded upon a declaration that proclaimed to the world Israel will be based, quote, on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisioned by the prophets of Israel. The state will ensure complete equality to all of its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. To me, these are milim kedoshim. They're sacrosanct. They're meant to honor the image of God in every human being, which is, right? It's foundational to Judaism. But these words are being degraded daily in our beloved Israel. Every day in East Jerusalem, in Hebron, in Negev, Bedouin villages, in the ruins of Gaza, in rural West Bank, there's a degradation of innocent non-Jewish life as the indignities of the occupation worsen. It's a simple truth, but it's worth stating, I think. Poverty and oppression lead to bad things, right? Simple. They lead to terrorism, they lead to undying hatred, they lead to bad karma, at least, horrific karma. So, we have to look ahead. If not for the sake of kavod habriot, if not for the sake of upholding Tselem Elohim, then selfishly, let's look toward this for our own longevity, for our own security, for our own viability in a land that we love and need. I am wanting to tell you a story in 2007 with a small band of RHR rabbis. I visited East Jerusalem family whose home had been bulldozed the day before. They were sitting on their cement rubble and twisted wires that had been their home. At first, it was only us, 7 rabbis, and this horrified, traumatized family. And then one by one, boop, 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 all these heads poked out, and these boys came out, young men came out, and there they were, pew, 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 or rat-tat-tat, or throwing grenades. They were all toys, they were all plastic, but make no mistake, and all of us saw it. There were 15, 20 boys taking aim, playing, but clearly they were in training to defend the honor of their elders, to defend their small patch of dignity. It's no exaggeration to say that they were terrorists in training. The family whose home had been demolished had done nothing wrong. We learned later that week in the mayor's office, the Jerusalem municipality simply has a yearly quota of home demolitions. that are required to be filled in the Arab neighborhoods. You may know about this, you may know nothing about this. I think it's fair to say there's a tendency in the Jewish community, and I know I'm talking fast because I want to get it all in, there's a tendency in the Jewish community to have a blind spot about Israel. And it takes determination, my friends, to venture beyond that blind spot, to venture beyond the security wall, the separation barrier, to see with our own eyes the other side, the shadow side of Israeli life, the roughly 4 million cousins who live now under our domination. It's a mysterious irony of history that we're the ones creating the laws now. But did you know that there are now 50 laws on the books in Israel that are profoundly un-Jewish? And in the most pragmatic sense, these discriminatory laws could, God forbid, endanger our future simply because, what? Because they sow hatred. Because they sow hatred. For instance, a law, I'll just mention a few, validates, it was just passed in October, validates separate bus lines for Jews in the West Bank from Palestinians. A law that sends African asylum seekers to jail without trial or due law, passed in December. A law that Arabs can be denied housing in any Jewish municipality because they are not Jewish. A law that restricts water to Palestinians in the West Bank, often from their own wells, but gives 5 times the amount of water to the settlers next door. On the floor of the Knesset right now is a nationality law that was written in our names, that is global Jewry, permanently making non-Jewish minorities second-class citizens. I don't think it's too dramatic to say that there is a battle waging for the soul of Israel right now. And if we are not weighing in as spiritual leaders with our words and our actions and our tefillot and our discourse, I fear that we are silently acquiescing to worsening karma and the death of a dream, God forbid. Shtika kahoda'ah, silence is acquiescence. So I've said it. Please know I'm not saying this lightly, nor am I denying that there is true hatred in the region that predated Israel's policies, present policies, nor am I saying that we do not have a real and legitimate security concern. I am not denying anti-Semitism. I mean, I know all of that, and I'm being pragmatic here. We must not be blind. We cannot afford to sow more hatred. If you have not seen with your own eyes, then please get online at least with our Chevra, the Rabbis for Human Rights, to see the systematic destruction of communities that is going on throughout the West Bank and the Negev. To learn what the settler movement is up to, almost with complete impunity from the Israeli government, perpetrating daily hate crimes such as cutting down entire orchards of 100-year-old trees, poisoning flocks that are grazing, poisoning them with poison pellets, beatings and terrorizing of elders and kids, burning down mosques. It's all there. It just doesn't hit the papers, to name just a few. This, my friends, is not Judaism. Even if it's done, perpetrated with kippot and arba kanfot, it is not Judaism. It's not Jewish. It's a chilul Hashem. There's so much that is beautiful and right and true in Israeli society. If this were not the case, then gay society would be under wraps, but Selim and RHR would be quashed. Free press would not be alive and well. This is the beauty of Israel. But deep loyalty must be to the right things, not a blanket thrown over what is morally wrong. I don't have an easy formula for how to bring these things into Asiya, but I did give you a one-page white sheet. I hope that you have it. If you don't, there's more right here. And in your time together as a chavruta, David, could you just hand these out to people that need them? They've been handed out. I think Sandy Pond handed them. There were a bunch of them, and here's more. There's a few more. It doesn't have a title. It's just a 10 in the back of the room, honey. It's a white sheet. You probably have it in your hand. I'm going to read them they range from in order of difficulty. So it starts with, instead of reading rote prayers for the state of Israel, write prayers yourself that make sense. Or check out truah.org. This is my beloved organization, RHRNA, and download prayers there. 2, get online with 972 magazine, RHR, or B'Tselem, and inform yourself. Start a study or dialogue group on Israel and refuse to be bullied. Refuse to be bullied. Go to your local mosque or Islamic center and introduce yourself. Dialogue with the imam and others. Jeremy Parnas was telling me what he's done in Regina. It's amazing. Invite them to your shul. Go to Israel. Do I have 2 minutes? Do I have 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Go to Israel and sign up for an amazing program led by Encounter, and take your shul and federation people with you. When you go to Israel next, volunteer with RHR. These are our chevra, our arshanim. These are the tzaddikim in Israel. Go harvest olives with the Palestinians. Go plant trees on both sides of the green line and see for yourself what is happening. Sign up with J Street, Trua, APN, Ta'ayush. Consider not purchasing products made in the West Bank settlements, such as wine, SodaStream, Ava. This is getting harder, so don't throw eggs at me, please.
I think SodaStream stopped doing it.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. Consider including the names of Palestinian children killed by the hands of Tzahal, by the arms of Tzahal during your memorial services. This is perhaps the most important one at the end, and I hope something comes of it. As Ohalah, in integrity with all that we are and all that we have received from our beloved Rebbe, Zichrono Livracha, create and post an official statement on our website, a platform that speaks about the un-Jewish practices and erosions of human rights in Israel. Whatever we do, my friends, remaining silent and immobile for fear of ruffling feathers, losing members, losing reputation, borders on immoral. Shtika kahoda'ah, silence is acquiescence. Thank you so much for listening to me. Just go take a minute to be quiet and breathe.
1 minute for breathing. If you follow my theory about the Yodhe Vavhe, the commandment at Sinai that says, don't take my name as name, doesn't mean don't say, oh Jesus or oh God. It means every breath is my name. Breathe.
So please begin to share, and you can use that list if you like. Just point out what speaks to you, what irks you, what you might be able to do in your community. Stretch yourself, 1 minute each. Please switch.
Hi.
Hi.
So tikkun olam. Well, it's in part it's taking care of being sensitive and showing compassion. It's taking care of the homeless. If you bring somebody home, if you provide a shelter for them, if you feed the hungry. But the notion of tikkun has to go further, and it has to mean tikkun olam b'malchut shaddai has to mean also eliminating, not just dealing with the individual acts, but eliminating poverty, eliminating homelessness, transforming the fundamental structures of the world that have created the problems. See, we have progressive social change movements that have listed hundreds of problems. And we know the complaints. There are long lists of complaints. I want to say that Martin Luther King Jr. did not become an icon of social change by giving a speech that said, "I have a complaint." What the liberal and progressive social change movements do not have is the dream. They do not have and have not articulated a vision of the world we are for. And this is part of what is central to changing the dynamics in American society, is that can come out of the spiritual world. But the problem that we're facing is very deep, because there is a system of oppression. A system that in which, over the course of the past 40 years, there has been a dramatic change in the levels of distribution of wealth in the society. A tiny percentage of the population getting a great deal more, and the vast majority getting a great deal less. Less power and less wealth. And simultaneous with that, we've seen a change in consciousness in which more and more people are willing to support defunding government and eliminating, so that right now we have a Congress which in its fundamentals is committed to destroying, or at least severely limited, all of the advances that were made about the environment and all of the advances that have been made about caring for other people. How could this happen? How could this happen? Why is this happening? Why would, and one of the things that is so striking is that middle-income people and whose interests lie with those very protections for social welfare protections and environmental protections have been the base for a transformation towards the right. Why? How could that happen? Well, the liberal and progressive world has an explanation for it, and it says this. It says, the reason this is happening is because the vast majority of Americans, or at least all those very significant sects of Americans, are racist, sexist, homophobic, or stupid. This is a very bad way of talking about it. Very bad. I can tell you that although it may be true for about 20% of the population that have moved in that direction, it is not true for the vast majority of people who have moved in a more conservative direction. And I can tell you also that while people may not be the most sophisticated when it comes to policy issues, they know when they are being looked down upon. They know when they are being put down. And that put down feeling comes across from liberal and progressives who talk this way, who think this way, and who don't really get deeper into what is happening in the society and why. How do I know this? Before I became a rabbi, I was a psychologist and had the honor of leading a major NIMH investigation into the psychodynamics of American society. An NIMH sponsored program in which we studied the psychodynamics of American society at precisely the time when people were moving to the right. And what we discovered was that there's a great spiritual crisis in American society for a very large number of the people who are moving in that direction. That spiritual crisis starts in the world of work, in the experience that people have day after day, in which they are learning in the world of work that there's a bottom line. The bottom line is to maximize money and power for those who have power. and that their value is to the degree that they can contribute to that. And in that situation, they simultaneously are learning through their involvement day in and day out in the economy that nobody's there for them, that everyone is alone and each is competing with everyone else. That experience, 8 to 8 hours every day in the world of work, is brought home into personal life. It's brought home into, first of all, maximized also by the then turning on the media, which shows a world in which people are always seeking power over each other. And so what we discovered from when we listened to people was that they were bringing home in their consciousness from the world of work the notion that the real world is a world in which people seek power and advancement for themselves, and they don't care about anybody else. And that is dramatically reinforced from the moment you're looking at these little cartoons when you're 3 or 4 years old and the animals are beating up on each other, to every sitcom in which it's always about who has more power and who has less. But at the same time, we learned that most people, on the one hand, believe that this is reality and it can't be changed, and on the other hand, hate it. And hate it because they feel themselves surrounded by people who are selfish and looking out for number one. And they find that same dynamic infusing their loving relationships, even family life. More and more people enter into family relationships in which there's a calculation. Who amongst the people who are likely to fall for me will serve my needs, fulfill my needs more than anyone else? You might say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, the problem is that as people enter into marriages that are based on that, more and more people are afraid that at some point in their married life, they will find, their partner may find someone who will satisfy more of their needs. And then the stability that used to exist in family life no longer exists there. And so most people, it's not just the 50% of families that end up in divorce. It's the other 50%, because most people don't know whether they're in that 50% or the other 50%. So the fear of family life, the fear of instability, the fear that people can't really care about each other, that there's really no commitment, is pervasive. And hence the fear and upset about being in a society dominated by so much selfishness and materialism. Now, that fear has been spoken to by the right-wing churches in a very powerful way. And what the right-wing churches have done is to create a context in which people inside those churches really do care about each other. But then they align themselves with a politics that affirms the right of corporations and the powerful to have so much power to shape the larger society. And you might say, how do they get away with this? On the one hand, you've got them supporting the corporations and the structure of work and the values of the capitalist society that say, look out for number one, maximize what you can, get for yourself, the good of the whole will be served if everyone pursues their own self-interest. And on the other hand, saying, and we're also the champions of the pain that people feel living in such a society. How did they get away with this? Because the liberal and progressive forces aren't even in the relevant ballpark. They don't know that there is a spiritual crisis in the society. In fact, the liberal and progressive world defines its terms primarily in terms of economic entitlements and political rights. Don't get me wrong, I totally support all of those struggles. They're extremely important. They are, in fact, manifestations of love and caring. But you almost never will hear in the liberal and progressive world the talk about love or caring or kindness or generosity. That's why, having discovered this dynamic in which people moving to the right, ironically saying, on the one hand, I'm moving to the right because I feel I can't stand, I might agree with the left's positions, but I can't stand their elitism. They don't like me. They disdain me. And part of that also is the religiophobia that exists in the liberal and left world. And one of the things that kept on coming up in my study was people talking about how they feel that when they go into the liberal world, they're told, yeah, we'd like you to come and we need you to participate, but we hope that eventually you'll come to a higher level in which this silly religious stuff gets, you'll grow out of it and move to a higher level of consciousness in which you see that that was just some unresolved patriarchal issue for you or some unresolved father issue or whatever. So that's one level. But also, the sense that people have that the right is talking about the family crisis, about the spiritual crisis, at least in the right-wing churches, whereas the liberal and progressive world doesn't do that. That's what led us at Tikkun to create an organization we call the Network of Spiritual Progressives, an interfaith organization, to try to articulate a different vision, or what we call a new bottom line. And that new bottom line says that institutions and social practices should be judged efficient, rational, and productive, not only to the extent that they maximize money and power, but also to the extent that they maximize love and caring, kindness and generosity, ethical and ecological sensitivity, enhance our capacity to respond to other human beings as embodiments of the sacred, and enhance our capacity to respond to the universe with awe and wonder and radical amazement at the grandeur of all that is. It's that new bottom line that we believe is critical for changing the way the liberal and progressive forces operate. But it's actually you who could make that happen. We need spiritual leaders and to be speaking to your congregants about going into that liberal and progressive world with a different discourse, a discourse of love and caring, kindness and generosity, an insistence on the need for all of those different organizations and all of those different groups to articulate a shared vision of the world that they are for. And we could do that. What would that look like politically? Well, here, with time almost running out, we've given you this little thing that I hope you'll read, Tikkun Olam. I think almost all of you have it. But let me just give you one example, two examples of what this translates into. Number one, we call for a global Marshall Plan to eliminate, once and for all, eliminate global poverty, homelessness, hunger, inadequate education, inadequate health care. It's not enough to ameliorate it in one country or another country. Let's articulate for the world that what we are for is for eliminating all poverty, homelessness, hunger, inadequate education, and inadequate health care. The details are here. The second thing is the Environmental and Social Responsibility Amendment to the Constitution. The ESRA calls for, number one, eliminating all money in politics and making elections totally funded by government, and all, not just corporations, but all money from anyone banned from elections. Okay? So that's number one of the ESRA. Number two, it requires corporations to get a new corporate charter once every 5 years, and that corporate charter would only be granted to corporations that could prove a satisfactory history of environmental and social responsibility to a panel of ordinary citizens. That would totally transform the economic and political arrangements. Okay, you might say it's unrealistic. Yes, of course. That's what, of course it's unrealistic. So was it to ask for the vote for gays, or for to marriage rights for gays. So was it to imagine that you could undermine patriarchy. So was it so that you could imagine undermining segregation in this country. On and on, every